We are the spiritual brigades. We have to do even more. It has been 5 weeks. I wanted to share some more stories that I've been hearing and some thoughts behind it, and especially connecting it to today, which is a very special day. Tonight is Rosh Chodesh, the first day of a month, which is always special. And it's Rosh Chodesh Kislev. It's the first day of the month of Kislev. Kislev is a month of miracles for the Jewish people. It's the month of Hanukkah. So we are entering the month of miracles. Actually, in the Hasidic lexicon, this is called the month of redemption. There are many days of redemption in the Chabad Hasidic calendar, specifically in this month. Actually, this month is so saturated with holy days. It's like almost every day is something else very, very special. So it's a high energy month, high joy month, high redemption month. So we can't wait to see this all, because that's what's going to unfold. So just a moving story I heard, just sort of the energy of the time. There's a man who's in Israel, who's going through the process of conversion, and he went to the rabbinical court, which is called the Beit Din, and he asked if they could possibly speed up the process. The process is not fast. It's a slow process to, of course, make sure the person is ready when they take this monumental, transformative step of conversion. And they said, why? Like, we don't speed this up. And he said, because he's going now to fight in Gaza. And if he dies, he would like to die as a Jew. Just another expression of where people are holding, what's going through people's heads, and what's happening now. Miracles. So many miracles. I hear so many miracles. I almost have to filter which ones to say, because I'm hearing so many. So there was a group of soldiers in Gaza, in an area that they had conquered. They had driven out the terrorists of, and they were sitting around. It was what we would call lunch break. And accidentally, one of the soldiers' guns shot a bullet, which is never, 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 never supposed to happen. It could be incredibly dangerous and could kill someone. You're supposed to do like 3 different things to protect your gun from ever accidentally shooting a bullet. So I guess he didn't do any of the 3. So everyone's like, whoa. They're just sitting eating lunch. Suddenly a bullet goes whizzing by. They're like, whoa, what was that? He's like, it's an accident. I don't know how. All right. And anyone got hurt? No one got hurt. Okay. All the soldiers were fine. Well, where did the bullet go? We've got to check. I mean, someone else could have gotten hurt. They follow the trajectory of the bullet, and they find it in a dead terrorist. As I'm sure you all know by now, there's all these network of tunnels, the Gaza Metro, they call it, underground. And there was a terrorist that had come up from one of these tunnels with a number of grenades to throw at the soldiers. He was literally half out of the tunnel and half in, and that bullet went straight to him and killed him. That one shot. And when the soldiers saw this, they said, whoa, who knows who's doing what? Who knows what is happening right now, that we just received this absolute miracle that saved every one of their lives. And that's what we have to think about. That's what we want to focus on. Who created that miracle? We did. And we need to stay focused and keep doing it. Something I just heard yesterday, and gave the backstory behind this story. There's a woman I'm very, very, very close to. And tragically, her brother, who I think is 48, suddenly had cardiac arrest and passed away Thursday night. So yesterday I called to give her comfort, and she asked me to speak to her parents, and I spoke to them for quite a while. And her mother told me the story. I'm sharing the story. It's an amazing story, in sync with everything we say, and also to be an elevation for the soul of this man, Shmuel, who just passed away Thursday night, totally sudden. So this past summer, Shmuel went to visit Israel. And for some reason, in his head, he brought a Torah scroll. Now, I just want to put this in perspective. You should understand the specialness of Shmuel and the significance of what happened in the story. A Torah scroll costs $25,000, $30,000, $35,000, $40,000. Torah scrolls a very expensive investment. Somehow he had this Torah, and he had this thought: he's going to Israel and he wants to gift it to someone in Israel. He wants to donate it somewhere in Israel. He didn't know exactly where. And he was in Israel for a few weeks, and he was visiting. He has a lot of relatives in Israel, a lot of friends in Israel. And he went to a cousin who lives in a kibbutz Mifalsim, kibbutz near Gaza, not religious kibbutz. He comes to the kibbutz to visit his cousin. His cousin has some high position, some secretive high position in the army, and talking to his cousin and talking about religious things. And it turns out there's no Torah scroll in the kibbutz. It's a secular kibbutz. Obviously, it's a Jewish kibbutz. So at one point they had one. They even have 2 Torah scrolls, but they are not at all kosher. So there's no kosher Torah scroll in the kibbutz. And this Shmuel said, I brought a Torah scroll to Israel. I'm going to donate it to you. I want to give this Torah scroll to your kibbutz because a Torah scroll brings protection. It'll bring protection to your kibbutz. He did this on August 15th. They saw this in his phone, literally the dates. On August 15th, he brought the Torah scroll. He also brought mezuzot, for all the doors of his cousin's home, and he also gave him tefillin. This is a tremendous financial investment, tremendous investment in this one cousin, in this one kibbutz. He had this feeling. He said, this will bring protection for you. Your house is protected. And of course, when you have mezuzahs on your door, it doesn't protect you when you're in your house. It will protect you when you're outside your house. This will protect you. And this Torah scroll will protect the entire kibbutz. That was August 15th. A few weeks later was October 7th. Very early in the morning, when everything started happening, this cousin got the call to come up for duty because he was in a very high position in the army. He drives out of the kibbutz. Now, in the kibbutz, it's all quiet, driving a Tesla. And he hears, of course, the missiles, but they don't feel like they're right there, but then they're getting closer, but he's got to go. They open up the gates of the kibbutz. He goes out, and he sees this truck with 35 terrorists, and they all start shooting at him. And he said they were shooting, trying to shoot up his gas, for the whole car to blow up. But this is a Tesla. It runs on a battery. So there was no gas that blew up. They're shooting to get him, to get the car, to get the wheels, the tires. And they get the tires, he's stuck. Then they just go walk over and butcher him. They shot out his 2 back tires. He drove on his 2 front tires. They managed to get him 3 separate places. He got wounded in 3 places, but he still managed to drive with these 2 tires. And he drove all the way to the nearest city of Ashkelon, where he got taken care of and then went on to whatever he was doing for the army. In the meanwhile, now he was also the head of the security of the kibbutz, but he left the kibbutz. There are 4 other members of the security of the kibbutz. There's 35 terrorists with grenades, with lots of ammunition, and with detailed maps. They found on them afterwards such detailed maps of the kibbutz that these kibbutz members said they don't even know all the things, which of course makes you feel horrible because that means some of the Arab workers they had, who knows which ones, how many of them, gave information on every house and every family and every back alley and everything in the kibbutz. And they saw the date on the maps. The date was October 2022, a year before. I can't vouch for anything else, but this kibbutz was mapped out a year before the attack, which means well over a year. They were planning this attack because a year ago they had detailed maps and they had a whole plan and they marked they were going to go for the generators, for this, for that, and then do everything they were doing in all the kibbutzim. Somehow, there's no answer to it. I saw these 4 guys were interviewed on CNN. There's no answer. Somehow the 4 of them with limited ammunition, total shock, no plan, and they couldn't communicate because they were supposed to be communicating on whatever, their walkie-talkies. Nothing was working. I don't know why. For some reason, nothing was working. 2 of them were together. The other 2 were separately. They fought off and killed every one of these 35 terrorists. Unfortunately, there were many people that were massacred outside the kibbutz because people running from the festival, this was a kibbutz very close to the festival. Many of the people, unfortunately, that ran away from the festival went to kibbutz Be'eri, where they got massacred, and went to this kibbutz, where they didn't get inside the kibbutz, but as they were running, the gates were closed, so they left their car and they're running to the kibbutz. They can't see, they don't realize on the side are these terrorists, and as they're running, the terrorists start shooting them. Such barbarism. You shoot a guy with 1 bullet, he's gone. They saw one person's body was riddled with 550 bullets. Cannibalism. So there are unfortunately many, many people that died outside the kibbutz that ran from the festival, thought they came to safety, and were killed by the terrorists. Some people got into a safe place, like it's called like a safe house, outside the kibbutz, and the terrorists grenaded it and killed them. But not one person in the entire kibbutz was harmed. Every other kibbutz like that, massacres, entire families massacred or hostage. Not one person was taken in this kibbutz. These 4 men did what doesn't make any sense. It's absolutely impossible. They held off the terrorists and they killed every one of them. The only kibbutz where this happened to. There were 2, in other words, they had mapped out 22 settlements, 3 cities and 22 settlements. 2 of the settlements keep the Shabbos, and I guess because they keep the Shabbos protected them, and the terrorists did not get into the kibbutz. They tried a bit and they went away. Makes no sense. But the Shabbos protected them. 19 of them were massacred. And this one kibbutz is the only kibbutz in the whole area that managed to kill, keep away, keep at bay, and ultimately kill every one of those terrorists. How? How did these 4 men do it? Because there was a Sefer Torah protecting them. There was the mezuzah, there was film, there was a Sefer Torah protecting them. And this was done by this person, Shmuel, who passed away suddenly, cardiac arrest Thursday night. Should be a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous merit for his soul that he brought the spiritual salvation that saved this entire kibbutz. And it's just amazing, again, what one person can do. He has a strange idea, he's going to randomly donate a Sefer Torah somewhere in Israel, giving away this very expensive item, and just randomly decides to give it to this cousin. He has loads of relatives all over Israel, and he wasn't like specifically close with this cousin. And the whole story is just hand of God, hand of God, hand of God, and also very much how much one person makes such a difference. How one person literally saved so many, many, many lives. I saw 2 clips, which actually afterwards I checked, and there is English subtitles. I'll tell you the story. 2 clips really promoting an idea that we've discussed before, but these 2 clips are talking about stories that happen right now. We discussed that the Lubavitcher Rebbe said that protection for every single Jew is by acquiring a letter in a Torah scroll for all the Jewish people. The Rebbe started this in December of 1981, before it was called Shalom HaGalil, the war in Lebanon. The war in Lebanon has, unfortunately, amazing parallelisms to what's going on now. The war in Lebanon also, they took 100 children hostage. The war in Lebanon also, this was a PLO, not Hamas, but they were using human shields. They were hiding among civilians, so the world was screaming at Israel. How can you, harm all these civilians? The war in Lebanon also, they got up to Beirut, and they waited there and let the PLO escape. That's not going to happen this time. Before the start of the war in Lebanon, December of 1981, Lubavitcher Rebbe started this campaign of writing Torah scrolls. He pushed it very, very strongly in connection to the war, in connection to the safety of the people, very strongly pushed it in connection to what became the destruction of the nuclear reactor in Iraq on June 7th of 1981. And in general, the Rebbe says that having this letter protects the person. So I saw 2 clips firsthand, meaning the person involved was telling his story. In one, a young man was saying, he's from Israel, he's speaking Hebrew, and he was saying that this past holiday season, he was in New York, as I was in 770, and right before the holiday, meaning Friday before the holiday of Sukkot began on Shabbos, he saw outside 770 a man who was pushing and promoting this idea of having a letter in this Torah scroll. And the man was explaining that the Torah scroll protects. So buy it. It's $1, even smaller than that. Buy a letter, and this will create protection for you. So the young man, he purchases for himself a letter. And he continues walking. And then he's like, wait a minute. If this letter is protection, if Lubavitcher Rebbe is saying this letter is going to protect, I'm only buying for myself. I got a lot of people that need protection. So he goes back and he buys for his parents. He buys for his siblings. And then he starts buying for every relative, or not even relative, sort of distant relative he could think of. Literally, he's standing there buying letter after letter after letter, and he buys for some friends. On October 7th, the kibbutz that suffered the most horrific damage from all these 22 kibbutzim and moshavim that were attacked. It's called Kibbutz Be'eri. It's right by the festival, which of course meant also people that ran from the festival, and they ran to Kibbutz Be'eri because they didn't understand what was going on. And they thought they were going to have salvation, and almost everyone also got butchered who did that, besides one woman who somehow, whatever, her whole miracle story. I never said that. It's a different miracle story, how she survived. Kibbutz Be'eri, basically they killed you or they took you hostage. Very few survivors. No family survived intact except one family, the relatives of this boy. Now, to understand the magnitude of the miracle, this family was in 5 separate places in the kibbutz. Meaning, if you think, all right, well, these people are all hiding together and somehow God made a miracle and they didn't go to that bomb shelter or they couldn't open it up. We know survivors that had such miracles. They were in 5 separate places. In one place was his aunt, uncle, and a baby. In another place was a boy cousin of his. In another place was a girl cousin of his. In another place was his aunt's sister. And in another place was his aunt's parents. All of those people survived. They are the only family that was in the kibbutz at the time of the massacre and survived intact, meaning every single family member in the kibbutz survived. And they were in 5 separate places. And this surely came as a protection from these letters because it makes absolutely no sense. The second clip I saw, also told firsthand by the person that was involved, is a different young boy, also from Israel. And it was Saturday night, 3 weeks after October 7th. And he had spent that Sabbath, that Shabbos, in Meron. Meron is near Tzfas, less than an hour from Tzfas. And he was in Meron, and Saturday night, he went to an army base. There's an army base right near Meron that he went to. And this army base has a lot of soldiers that were just sort of hanging around. They weren't doing anything then specifically. And he started talking to them. And he started sort of talking to everyone. He's a little kid. I mean, I don't know, maybe he's 16, 18, looks young. And he's talking to them about the power, again, of a letter in the Torah scroll that will bring you protection. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says, if you have this letter, you will have protection. And then he went around and they all bought letters. Nominal price. And they all bought letters. Obviously, they want protection. So first they all come to him, and then he starts going to the soldiers to come to him. He goes to soldier. They all buy. He comes to a girl soldier, a woman soldier, and she says, nah, she's not interested. He's like, you're not interested? It's protection. All right, fine. She said, I'll give you my name, and I'm going to give you a second name. And he said, and a girl soldier, another woman soldier. He said, who is this? She said, it's my friend. And she's right now hostage in Gaza. He said, God willing, she'll be freed. That was Saturday night. Monday, he heard that the night before, a woman soldier was freed from Gaza. He immediately called this woman soldier that he sold the 2 letters to. And he said, was this your friend? Is this the friend that Saturday night we bought a letter for? She said, yes, she was in the cloud. Her friend was freed. She bought the letter for her friend Saturday night. Her friend was freed Sunday night. The place where you can purchase letters is very simple, unityletter.com. It's one word, unityletter.com. And it's amazing the power of those letters for protection. And I think, again, it just reinforces the theme that we are really focused on, which is the power of spirituality, the power of spirituality in making all of these miracles happen. There's an interesting incident I heard, not a miracle story per se, perhaps, maybe more covert, but I'm bringing it out for a different reason. This happened in Gaza recently. There's a group of soldiers progressing forward, and every group is progressing and it's very dangerous, and they know at any turn is Hamas lying in wait for them, running out of the tunnels to attack them, booby trapping areas for them. It's very, 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 very dangerous work. So what they're doing is they have the intelligence operating on the border between Gaza and Israel. They have set up screens there, and they have drones going ahead of these groups of soldiers. And the men in the intelligence tents, they're seeing on their screens what the drones are seeing. And based on that, hopefully, they will be able to prevent these ambushes and surprise attacks that Hamas is constantly doing. It was about 3 a.m. And this intelligence officer, his shift was over. And he was like done and exhausted, and his eyes were bleary from staring at these screens for hours. And he's leaving, and he's like, let me just look one more time. Because he knows at this moment there are soldiers progressing. This is when they do the action, in the middle of the night. So he knows at this moment, any second, the soldiers could be in trouble. And he sees one of the drones caught a number of terrorists that were literally lying there in ambush for these soldiers that were not so far away. He was like, oh my gosh, he immediately sprang into action, contacted the soldiers, contacted the air. This is a very coordinated air-land attacking. So the Air Force to bomb them, the soldiers to retreat, to take protection. And thank God they eliminated the terrorists, and the soldiers continue. And he goes to sleep. It's the end of his shift. The next day, now it's about 12 hours later, now he's again in the intelligence tents watching the screens. And these same soldiers returned from their mission. And one of the soldiers walked into the tent. And he was drenched. And he was filthy. He was covered in mud, covered in sweat. And he sees this guy. He's clean. He's sitting in a clean tent. He's got lots of bamba and bisli, all these Israeli snacks that the Israeli population just showered on the soldiers. He's like, he lost it. He's like, what's going on? I'm crawling in the mud, and you're in this tent munching on bamba and bisli. The intelligence soldier said to him, I totally hear what you're saying, but I was sitting here yesterday at 3 a.m. and I saw that ambush. And that's why you're back here now. And they were like, oh my gosh, he felt so emotional. He started crying. The two of them hugged. Very intense moment. Why am I sharing this story? Because I think it's a very strong parallel for our situation that we've spoken about many times. When this soldier who was dripping in sweat and mud and had gone through such horrific, torturous time over those hours, they were inch by inch conquering more and more territory in Gaza. And we can't even imagine what's going on there. And we just keep hearing reports where they're saying, pray for us, do commandments for us, do more for us. It's such a hard situation. It's everyone says urban warfare, impossible, against terrorists in their own place. And anybody that's looking at it from a military perspective says horrible things. But we trust God, and we have arsenal that America didn't have when they were fighting Iraq or Afghanistan. We have God's powers that we're eliciting by our work. So I felt this little vignette really express this point, because we could feel, so I'm saying more Psalms, and I'm giving charity, and maybe right now I'm on a bus schlepping to Washington. But compare that to what these people are doing literally in Israel at this moment. Not true. Not true. Just like that soldier looks at this officer in the intelligence tent and is thinking, what are you doing? You're sitting here munching on your bamba. And he said, I was staring at the screens and I saved your life. We have no clue what we're doing is accomplishing. We have no clue, but it is. And every time we hear another story, and for every story I tell you, there's so many I'm not telling you. Trust me. I'm like, I don't think you just want to hear, though maybe you do want to hear. I don't know. It's very heartening to hear, but that's why I say a few. But so many stories coming out, and it's you really need a lot of miracles for this. You need not only miracles. I don't even know what you need. I don't even know. Like I'm saying, I like to tell God what to do. Not that he listens, but I like to give him my unasked for advice, unsolicited, but I say it anyway. But I don't even know. I'm like, I don't know. I come up with great fantasies, but I don't know. But God, you know. We're giving you the arsenal. We're creating the spiritual arsenal, and you fashion salvation. And that's what's happening. And especially tonight. Tonight is, as we said, Rosh Chodesh Kislev. It's the first night of the new month of Kislev. Kislev is a great month for salvation, as we said. It is called the month of redemption. This is the month of redemption of the Jewish people. Hanukkah happened in this month. Many Hasidic holidays are in this month. So many, like every day is a holiday, basically. And on this first day, Rosh Chodesh Kislev, also, and sort of interesting parallelism. In 1977, on Shmini Atzeres, the Lubavitcher Rebbe suffered a massive heart attack. Now, it's very interesting because in New York, Shmini Atzeres, in Israel, is Simchas Torah. Meaning October 7th, Simchas Torah in Israel, is Shmini Atzeres in America. So on Shmini Atzeres of 1977, Lubavitcher Rebbe suffered a massive heart attack. He insisted on staying in 770. He was there for 5 weeks until tonight, until today, until Rosh Chodesh Kislev, when he was well enough to go home. His cardiologist, who's actually the main cardiologist, is from Chicago, someone I know, Dr. Ira Weiss. He said the Rebbe's heart attack created such extensive damage. For most people, it'll just be a question of survival, not at all of functionality, not at all of recovery, just of, is the patient going to survive? But the Rebbe, in what we consider a relatively very quick recovery of 5 weeks of this massive heart attack, and not only survived, not only recovered, not only maintained his functionality, an enormously intense pace of work, but seemingly he did more with more vigor and more energy than before. So Rosh Chodesh Kislev is a time we celebrate health and recovery. It seemed very bad 5 weeks before, very bad. And then 5 weeks later, we're dancing. So this day, the day of the Rebbe's heart attack in 1977, was the day that the Jewish people were attacked. Now, in 2023. In 1977, after the heart attack, the followers of the Rebbe, the Hasidim, went into 770 and they danced all night. They cried and they danced. They danced because they knew that's what you do. That's the energy to create salvation. And they cried because of the situation. 5 weeks later, on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, we just danced. It was just pure joy. As the Rebbe continued, and as I'm saying, led with seemingly more vigor than before. So this is the energy of today, of tonight, that we should access that joy, which is really coming from that confidence. It's good. I am sure there is so much happening now that we're completely clueless to. Just as by the Gulf War. The Gulf War was so miraculous. The Gulf War ended so quickly. The whole world acknowledged the miracles of the Gulf War. But the Lubavitcher Rebbe then said, there are far more miracles in the Gulf War than any of you know. It's still, top secret, classified information. And many years later, some of that information was declassified, and we found out the enormity of the miracles of the Gulf War that none of us knew when it happened. And I am positive, however many miracles we know now, there's so many more miracles happening that only those in the know. And I'm sure there are miracles happening that nobody knows. So it's good. And what are we supposed to do now? What are we supposed to do about it? We're supposed to trust. We need to trust God. Just as then, so too now. Now, a person could say, what am I making this connection for? So in 1977, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Shmini Atzeres, it was very sad and painful and scary and tragic. And 5 weeks later, complete redemption. And now it happens to be the same thing. Yeah, okay, October 7th, like Shmini Atzeres, absolutely. And now it's 5 weeks later. So what? Why are we drawing this parallelism? So to understand this, you need to understand how the Jewish calendar works. It's not just 46 years ago something happened on this date and we're making and deciding it should also happen now. Every momentous event is happening because of the divine energy of that time. Literally, every day has its own energy. And events happen on a day because of the energy of the day. Just like Passover. 3,300 some years ago, there was an Exodus on the 15th of Nisan. Until today, those days of Passover are so auspicious to gain freedom. Why? Because that's why the Exodus happened on the 15th of Nisan. Because those days have the energy of freedom. And so too with every other day in our calendar. The reason why the event happens is because of the energy of that day. And therefore, we see, if we study over the years of history, we see these very interesting patterns, like on this day, again and again and again, whatever happened, that's the energy of that day. I've seen this personally with my own life, and I definitely see this in Jewish history. It's very, very, very clear. If the Rebbe suffered a life-threatening event on the same day as there was this life-threatening and worse event, it's not random. 46 years later, the same day, it's not random. And if now, on Rosh Chodesh, 5 weeks later, this is a day we mark as the Rebbe's recovery date, as the day when we celebrate and thank God for the Rebbe's health, that means that's the energy of this day. And that's the energy we can access now with confidence, with trust, with joy. And we should already begin celebrating. Just like we spoke, if you remember, about how the women, my friends, made a party to celebrate the release of 2 hostages that were friends of theirs. They're celebrated on Sunday. And that Friday, the 2 women, Yehudit and Natalie, got out. 2 of the only 5 hostages that have gotten out thus far, though they all will get out, God willing. We want to celebrate the complete release of the captives, the complete destruction of evil, the complete safety and security of the land of Israel and the people of Israel. And we want to celebrate that the world is moving toward redemption. I posted, I thought it was unbelievable. I see so much more than I post. Every time I post something, I think many times first. Don't want to flood anyone. But I posted this 7-minute piece from CNN. I don't know if maybe I posted the abridged version. It might have been 5 minutes. It's really in the original, it's 7-minute piece. CNN is showing the evil of Hamas. CNN is stating that Israel, of course, cannot have a ceasefire. It's the CNN. It is just like so strongly saying we are walking toward Mashiach. We are walking toward redemption. As we spoke last week, the world's making choices. And it's just unbelievable, some of the choices we see the world making. So an auspicious time is really a time to reassess, what are we doing to create these miracles? As I'm sure you've noticed, that is the theme of tonight. We're saying joy. Now, sometimes I know I'm speaking about joy. Sometimes a person could even feel guilty now for celebrating. People are suffering. Who knows what's happening with the hostages, the fear, the tension. People, their families, their husbands, their brothers, their sons in Gaza, those people themselves. I have relatives that I pray for every day. So you almost feel like I should be partying and celebrating and enjoying life when this is happening with my brothers and sisters and family members. All of the Jewish people are my family members, and I should be celebrating when there's such hard things my family's going through. Yes, that is not our perspective at all. Yes, celebrate, have joy. Joy breaks boundaries. Joy is a godly space. Enjoy family, enjoy people, love. And with that renewed energy from all that joy, we give God more. So we want to have joy, and we don't want to feel all guilty for joy. We're supposed to have joy. God wants us to have joy, and it's a godly service to have joy. Joy, and as we said, trust and confidence. It is good. There are, of course, other tools we're also using. There's the classical tools, and then there's something else I want to discuss tonight, though we have about 5 minutes left. I don't know if we're going to get to this. I want to start by reviewing the list of the classical tools, because really it's in our hands. We're the ones creating the miracles. You could say, no, there's millions of other Jews doing the work. No, that's not how we look at things. You look in the mirror. You're the one doing the work. So I want to review the list, and I want you to think, am I doing this? Or can I do this in some way? Am I doing it myself? Or maybe I was doing it before, but now I can improve how I'm doing it. Or maybe I can get someone else to do it. Or maybe I can even try to get someone else to do it. You could say, well, what's the point in trying when they don't listen? Because it all counts by God. Even the trying counts. Because each sincere effort does reach the other person and makes them a step closer to the deed, to the service of God. So there's the classical list, and let's think about it. And maybe people can raise with their virtual hands. If you are doing this, if you've added, if you have tried to get other people to do it, if you tried and didn't succeed, but you still tried. In all of our classical tools, really for each one of us to make like a soul searching, what we call in Hebrew, cheshbon hanefesh, a soul accounting. We're all in this together. We all care. Here's the ways. Now, again, you might say this is, I have no ability to do this. I have no ability to get anyone else to do this. Okay, don't worry. It's a long list. But from what's possible, just to think and maybe show yourself, really. And when we see other people doing it, it strengthens our resolve to do it. So that's why it's good for people to say what they're doing, or I'm saying at least put up your thumbs. The most strongest one that I hope everyone's doing is Psalms. Adding in Psalms, saying more Psalms, getting other people to say Psalms. If you're doing that, if you could please show your hands or your...
May I say something? I know today was very, very hard day for me. And I don't know, it's not, I don't feel uncomfortable to share, but at the same time, it's like, it's just so much pain that I wanna either cry, either just say it. And then you said something about joy. And I started thinking, how can I joy in this situation? So beside being completely okay, all of us thinking and worrying about Israel. I have relatives there, of course, who I'm worried about, and everybody have the same. But at the same time, something else happened. Somebody very, very close and dear passed away today in Germany. It's a very, very close family member, and with pain, I'm like ripping between parts. Should I run to Germany for funeral? It's not easy. It's job, but it's very expensive, and it's just like I don't know, all of these things in my work, like so many things, and the only thing I could do just be so upset being working while being. At some point I just stepped out and I cried a little bit, and then I came back and I continue working, and thank God that work takes away your thoughts and pain. So I just got into the car and I'm thinking about all of this. And then you said something about joy. And on the one hand, I loved what you just said, but on another hand, yes, I do feel guilty. Like you said, we feel guilty. I feel guilty. How can I be joyful? And in this type of, like everything, I'm looking on the streets here where I live or in New York, so much anti-Semitism. I'm not scared, I'm concerned. Not scared, I'm concerned what's going on around us, where we heading to, and talk about joy. How?
I hear you, and it's very painful. Lots of different tragedies have happened recently, for sure. And we know what God wants from us. God wants us to trust him. And the more God is real, the more the world doesn't scare us. And we have to really, every one of us has to really embrace so tightly our belief in God, God's reality, our relationship with God. And when that's really, really, really strong, you look at the world and it's nothing. It's nothing. It's just acting out whatever script needs to be acted out right now. The script that maybe is just reminding us all of our relationship with God and our love for him and our love for each other. So when you're seeing in the world, like you're saying, the anti-Semitism or whatever else it is, it's just a tool. Literally, it's a tool that's being used to get us to do what we need to do in this world, because the world is run by God. There's no concept of God conflict with, it's all God. Everything's God, including the forces of evil. Doesn't mean they're not evil. And if they're humans, they're people making really bad choices, horrible choices. And we don't condone their choices, and we don't remove their culpability for their choices. But we know that God is scripting it all. And therefore, we're not scared. And again, whenever we fall into fear, always remember that's their whole goal. Terrorists want to terrorize. And now with social media, they have such a broader, easier platform to terrorize. And obviously that's picking up steam and creating all this ripple effect that we see all over the world. And that's why we're seeing things we have never seen and we have never seen. And conversely, I'm speaking to a woman, an Israeli woman who's a bit older than me, and she remembers all the other wars of Israel, and she says she's never seen this unity, and she's never seen this love, and she's never seen this returning to God. So it works in both directions. So we cling to God, we cling to truth, we cling to his service, and we know everything else of the world is just facades, has no truth to it, has no stamina to it, has no endurance, has no substance. And God wants us to be joyous. And that's a tool. And the joy really reflects the trust. The deeper the trust, the more natural and strong the joy. So when it's hard for us to access joy, which I totally understand, we have to go back to our trust. We have to go back to our foundational relationship to God and really focus on his reality. The same ideas we've said so many times over many years in this class. It's all him. It's only him. There's nothing but him. And then again, it's all him. It's only him. There's nothing but him. And definitely at certain points over these 5 weeks, I've had to do that myself and stop when you hear such horrific things. You just got to stop and say, no, don't fall into fear. Don't fall into despair. Don't fall into this bottomless pain. It's all him. It's only him. There's nothing but him. And the more you can feel that trust, the more you can naturally have joy, which obviously is not what you're going to have the day someone who's close to you passes away. But I'm saying in general. And why is it important to have joy? Because that, again, is expressing the truth of our relationship with God. And that's why it's so powerful. And that's why joy breaks boundaries. And we want to smash open every boundary there is between us and salvation. Limitless salvation on every single level that I keep reminding God of every single day. So we want that joy. And to have that joy, we really, really, really have to have that trust, that essential relationship with God. So we spoke about Psalms, and a lot of people said they are saying, but not everyone. It's the most foundational thing to do. It draws down God's kindness and compassion. Add one psalm. You're allowed to do it any time of day or night for Israel. Add one psalm. And again, you can say, well, I didn't even raise my hand. Yeah, of course, I'm saying so many psalms. Maybe get other people to say psalms. Psalms is powerful. You could have as much or as little of an investment time in it as you are having. But any one psalm, when I say psalms, I envision how the words are just right now like encasing and protecting. They're like making this like gossamer, just a shield, this light energy shield around hostages, around soldiers. And it's really happening. It's really what's happening. After Psalms, the next thing I would say, as again, just the most natural, strong go-to is charity. Give a lot, give a little. Just keep giving. The act of charity, we're told charity saves from death. If you've been adding in charity, or if you've spoken to other people about adding in charity, if you've succeeded in getting people to add in charity, if you haven't succeeded, but you've still spoken, If you could raise your hand, charity is a tremendous tool we have. Again, charity and psalms are like these enormous forces in our arsenal, enormous forces. And they really make a difference. What's it doing? I don't know which miracle is being created by my charity, but I know I give sincerely every single day. And I think of each thing that this charity is supposed to accomplish every single day. And since you cannot give charity on the Sabbath, before I light the candles, I give again. Every single Friday before candle lighting, I think of all the 9 things I'm thinking for Israel, and I give again, because I can't have a day that I'm not on some level giving charity. So I'm not giving it Saturday, I'm not giving it Shabbos, I'm giving it before the Shabbos. That day also, people should have the same protection, these same shields that the charity is creating. So those are 2 really strong things we have. And again, if you're not doing it, find a way to do it. You don't have to give a lot. You don't have a charity box? Go online. Give a small amount. Better to give a small amount every day than one lump sum. Every time, the act of giving itself is very powerful. It's protection. And there's only people that could use your protection. Tefillin. Obviously, we as women do not put on tefillin, but we can try to get men to put on tefillin. Every man that's putting on tefillin, that tefillin is protecting someone in Israel. The Rebbe started this campaign of tefillin before the 6-day war. It was the power that won the 6-day war, the spiritual power, because there's no way militarily to explain the 6-day war. It's literally, the verse says about tefillin, they will see it, they will fear you, they will run from you. And that's what happened in the 6-day war, and we'd like to create that again. So getting someone to put on tefillin, you cannot imagine what you're doing. Candle lighting. If you're lighting candles, great. Light a little early. Give charity before you light. Speak to someone else about lighting. Speak to a friend. Speak to her and send her the time. She's going to light or she's not going to light. But you're making it opportune for her. The candle lighting in Hebrew, the way it's referred to is the word neshek. Neshek, which literally means arsenal. This is literally an arsenal. This is a spiritual arsenal. So ask yourself, am I doing it? Can I do it better? Can I enhance how I'm doing it? Can I get someone else to do it? Mezuzah. You don't have a mezuzah. The Rebbe says if you put up a mezuzah where you are, it will protect Jews all over the world. Do you have mezuzahs? Have your mezuzahs been checked? Are they kosher? Can you think of someone else that could put up a mezuzah? Get that other person to put up a mezuzah and tell them this will protect Jewish people, not just in Israel, Jewish people, the whole world. Jewish people feel not safe. Jewish people need to put up mezuzahs. We spoke about the power of that letter in the Sefer Torah to create protection, right? I told you the website, unitytorah.com, I believe. I told it to you. And it is just, again, so many stories. I told you 2. So, for unityletter.com. Sorry, I said it wrong. Unityletter.com. You don't have, go online, unityletter.com, just to write down anyone that you know, especially people that you know that might be in a situation that doesn't seem safe in Israel or anywhere else in the world. Unityletter.com. Buy for yourself a letter, buy for anyone else you know that you think needs that protection. And like, who knows who needs the protection? Like I said in the first story, when the boy bought these letters for everyone, he didn't know what was going to happen a week later. Anyone we know that can use protection, unityletter.com, and it could save lives. And of course, getting Jewish children. If people have connections to Jewish children, to say words of Torah, to say words of prayer. That is the classical list. There's also something else I want to talk about, but you know what? I held you long enough. We will discuss it next week. But review personally your commitment to that classical list, which means, are you doing it? Can you do it more? Can you do it better? Can you get someone else to do it? Did you get someone else to do it? Did you speak to someone who's not doing it, but you still spoke to them? On some letter, looking at Psalms, Tehillim, looking at charity, looking at the tefillin, at the candle lighting, at the letter in the Torah. All of these things are creating the salvation that we know is happening now. And we have the merit that we're part of it. We're not just the bystanders. We're not just on the sidelines. We're in the army. And that's a huge merit and blessing that we can be doing things to protect and create salvation for the Jewish people.